So the guy who's governor for the day is walking through the line to get his barbecue chicken, and the lady hands him puts one piece of chicken on his plate, and he says, "I want 2 pieces of chicken," and she says, "You get 1 piece of chicken," and he goes, "Well, don't you know who I am? I'm the governor for the day." And she goes, "Well, that's nice." She goes, "Don't you know who I am?" And he says, "No." She says, "I'm the lady in charge of the chicken." Ever since I heard that story, like, I don't know, 25 years ago, I always remember that, because they may not like it. You could be a man or a female, but I always call them the chicken ladies. Because somebody is always going to be, however important you think you are, there's somebody that is going to be will require something of you, and mostly it's respect.
Welcome to the Seismic Shift Podcast, where we explore the seismic shifts that are shaking up the way that you work and the way that you live. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Johnston. Thank you to Loyola for their tremendous support. And y'all, we have the coolest woman leader, female, dynamo, badass, rock star. The president and CEO of Entergy New Orleans is in the house. Welcome to Deanna Rodriguez.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I was just saying that this is my first podcast ever to be on, and I'm a big podcast listener. So this is so exciting. So I appreciate the invitation.
Well, when I met you, Deanna, we can't figure out how many years ago it was, because you were still with Entergy Texas. You were with Entergy Texas, I think, and you were just coming to New Orleans, and I facilitated a workshop for you and your team.
Exactly right.
Fell in love with you as a person and as a leader, and then all of a sudden you disappeared, because I think they pulled you back to Texas.
They did. So that's exactly right. So it was 31 years ago that I started at the company as an analyst in Texas, and didn't know what working at a Fortune 500 company meant, didn't know anything about the business itself, but I had a female mentor and leader that I'd worked for before, and when they hired her, she asked me to come with her. And it was just one of my friends that I didn't know anybody. My parents were teachers, so I didn't know anybody that worked in a corporation. And so I asked one of my friends, the one friend that I knew that had some experience as an entrepreneur, and he goes, "Well, have you read their annual report?" And I said, "What's an annual report?" That basic. I had my master's in public policy, but I did not have a business background. So 31 years later, it's really kind of fun to look back and go, wow, what a journey I've had, and what tremendous experiences I've been blessed with in working for a great company.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I'll never forget. So when I found out you were back, it was because one of my good buddies, Keith Wood, started working for you. I was like, oh my gosh, Deanna's back. Deanna is going to love you, Keith. Keith is so smart and such a beautiful communicator.
He's great. He's actually, he should be a professor too, because he's this secret, passionate writer, and we share poetry. But what I remember about having you come in, I was brand new back into a role, which was probably the first time I did regulatory. So it was a big shift from external affairs to corporate to lobbying. I had done all these things with external facing, but not with an eye towards regulatory, which in our industry, which is electric utility industry, it's very, very complex. But I noticed our team needed some help in not just communicating externally, but communicating with each other. And you had a brand new test, I guess, or survey.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be really fun for the team to do. And it was the first time this group had ever been really developed in that way. And so they were so gracious and so excited to go, oh my God, what, you're going to teach me something? And it wasn't just, you're going to teach me what I'm doing. You're going to teach me something and develop myself.
And
And
those are the
you
best
did that
leaders.
beautifully.
Well, thank you, Deanna. And those are the best leaders who recognize how important it is to invest and develop your people. And so I remember I was thrilled to partner with you on that project. That was the first sabbatical I ever took at Loyola, where I created what at the time was the communication preference profile. And I was so
Yes.
proud because I'd collected all this data and crunched all the numbers and the stats. And I finally had the validity and the reliability. And I remember there were 4 different communication styles: people, action, content, technology. And we did the whole workshop. And then you disappeared. And then I was like, where did this fantastic woman Deanna go? And then y'all, the listeners, and I want to give a shout out to the listeners. We are so thrilled. We found out that the Seismic Shift podcast is now a top 10% podcast globally. How freaking cool is that? That's because of you, the listeners. So thank you again for tuning in. So then I'm at Jazz Fest. Just literally, we're talking about the most recent Jazz Fest last April and May. And I was in the hospitality tents with my friends, and I run into Deanna. I was like, where did you go, girlfriend? And so we then started hanging out again, and I got to see, in business and in personal life, she is the embodiment of connection. We talk about connection so much on this podcast. We try to deconstruct it. We try to figure out, what do we need to do better? And I will say, Deanna, I do think it is one of your superpowers. You are a natural connector. So let me hear from you. What are some of the seismic shifts that you're seeing? Because my biggest seismic shift is, I think it's got to be about connection. We're losing connection in light of AI and automation and technology. What are the seismic shifts that you're seeing?
I think there's 2, right? So one was, we went through COVID, and it was the remote workforce stuff. So people were probably happy for the first 2 or 3 months that, you could sit in your kitchen, and then people I got tired of sitting in my kitchen. And then it was the shift, and I'm not a management, authority, but just having seen what I've seen, where I have 30-something-year-old children. I have a 35-year-old who's going through that. He's 35 now, so this was 3 and 4 years ago. He was becoming very isolated, to the point where he said, Mom, I need a roommate. I just need to have somebody that at least I'm talking to. And when he was gone, when they went remote, they were given the option to go back 2 days a week. He's in the software development at a company in Austin. And I thought that was he knew himself well enough to say, I need to talk to people. And I'm seeing that again. So now we went from remote to hybrid to now people are coming back on site. Well, the shift that I'm seeing is just the collaboration, or people standing around at their cubicles or in the kitchen, and it's really getting to know people on a personal level rather than through a video conference. And you have, it's the small interactions of, hey, how are your children? And things like that make it, I almost find it more personal to talk on the phone, right? That rather than be on a video conference, because it just seems, maybe it's my age, but it seems more normal to me, and it seems more personal. So that's what I'm seeing. And so there's some good and bad through that, right? There's some people that go, well, I don't really like it. I can be more productive at home. But I think what I saw in our business is that we are more productive when we're working together. We're more creative.
Yes.
And you would walk by the work that we do. We plan 5 years out, for our business. And so you're making purchases and doing things that are going 5 to 10 years out, but we're constantly working on it. So I like walking by a room, and I like being in a room where everybody's debating. And I don't think that's normal to do it on the phone or on a Teams call. I think it's more normal to be across the person, to read their body language, to not take offense, to find that personal levity to take a break. It's those things that's what I've noticed.
You are absolutely right. All the research is showing that the Zoom, the Teams, the Google Meet, the virtual meetings are good for transaction, but that's about it. You hop on, you go through an agenda, you can get things done, you can solve some problems, make some decisions, but it is not good for creativity and it is not good for connection. So did you decide to have everybody come back in the office 5 days a week, or is there still flexibility?
There's some flexibility. We do alternate work Fridays, but we never shut down. So a reminder to the audience is I manage a workforce that keeps the lights on in the city of New Orleans. And so we have 2 customer care centers, which is very rare in the utility industry. And it's really more, I think it's more local, and it speaks to New Orleans that people still want to go into a building and pay their bill. So our workforce there never took a day off for COVID. Our linemen and folks that are out in crews never took a day off. So they were always going to work. The folks that were in the office setting were the ones that really had the remote work opportunity. So we were always there was always two kinds of employees. And our corporation, our senior, I'm the subsidiary of Entergy Corporate, and Drew Marsh said, I think we're missing out on something and we need to have everybody come back. So it filled up our parking garages again. And I think it's working very, very well. At least it does in my group.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. The face-to-face interaction absolutely inspires creativity, innovation, more debate, more discussion. Those things are just harder to do virtually. So I'm a big fan of in-person, and I'm a big fan of still offering some sort of flexibility.
Yes.
So that if you need to stay home for a day, and some people really get a lot more done given one day a week just to kind of crank it out at home. I am seeing the stats are coming in that more women are now leaving the workforce if it is mandated that they have to be in the office 5 days a week. They're losing some of that flexibility. And I'm seeing some leaders, it's interesting, Deanna, tell me what you think about this. In my role as an executive coach, I'm seeing some leaders all of a sudden, for the first time, really tamp down and grab hard on more control. Like now they're micromanaging the clock. Whereas before it was like, just get your job done. We value you. You're good. And now it's like, you have to be in at 8. You can't leave before 5. And I need you. And that seems to be backfiring, because when people feel like you're managing the clock and not their productivity, then what are your thoughts? That's what I'm seeing.
Well, I think it depends on the job. Right. So I'll give you an example, and we call it at Entergy, and probably other folks have described it like this too. I'm always on third shift. So you have your first and second shift, meaning morning, afternoon. Third shift is after 5. And because of the stakeholder engagement, because of the connectivity of not just what we do for our community, but what we do in our community, I have customer service managers that are out there after 5 participating in neighborhood association meetings, at cocktails. We have one young woman who's a customer service manager I guess she's 4th shift. She's in a band. She works specifically with the hospitality industry. And so she's the one that will go to, we also in New Orleans have a nightmare. You've heard of that, right? There's the nightmare and not night. Mayor, but night, M-A-O-R, M-A-Y-O-R. And that is somebody that, because of that hospitality industry, that's so vital to the city and to the culture. So she'll go meet a customer at 11 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night when the bar opens. And, it's her time. That's her way of looking at the world, right? Because she's also in a band. But I'm not going to sit there and ask her the next morning, why weren't you here at 8 o'clock? So it's a mix. And, and then you have other people like our staff that have to be in at a service center from 8 to 5. So they're going to be there from 8 to 5. So that's what I'm seeing. And I think you have to, as a leader, have that kind of flexibility. I know for sure, as a young mom with 2 kids, single mom with 2 kids, when I was entering the workforce, they were very strict, But then my daycare situation was also very strict. So I had to run out the door at 5 o'clock to make sure I could pick up my kids by 5:30. I don't ever want anybody to feel like that. That was just added pressure. And I think we can work around those kinds of things.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So yes, that's a beautiful seismic shift and I love that you shared the story. Thank you, of your son. That is exactly what I was seeing when we were coming out of the pandemic. People were saying my mental health has really suffered. Like, I'm feeling isolated. At first I thought, oh, this is amazing. I'm in my pajamas every day. Like, I don't have to have the camera on. But then what we're finding is that disconnection is quietly killing us. And that's not an exaggeration.
Is that across the board that you're seeing?
Yeah. So 1 in 5. So Dr. Vivek Murthy was our U.S. Surgeon General under President Biden. And now he wrote a book together based on all of his research that we are in an epidemic of loneliness and isolation, just like what your son. And that was right in the middle of the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic. So now what Dr. Murthy is doing is he's going around the country advocating we as communities have to do a better job of bringing people together. Mm-hmm. And his latest research is showing that 1 out of 5 of us globally are disconnected and isolated. And it's leading to a 60% increase in premature deaths. He said that's the equivalent of smoking 16 cigarettes a day.
Oh my goodness.
So it's not good. So we have two very different, we're advocating for two very different things from two different perspectives. He's advocating for more community involvement, get people out of their houses, like more bowling, more civic engagement. Well, we live in the greatest city on the planet. Right. Let's be honest, Deanna, we have a lot of community opportunities. As a matter of fact, I can hear a band that is practicing right now because Mardi Gras is on top of us. We have lots of community opportunities. I wrote my recent book, The Seismic Shift in You, because I believe it boils down to each and every one of us as individuals to now do things differently. I don't think the workplaces are necessarily working for people. The engagement is down, retention is down. I don't think it's working for people. I think we as humans have to show up differently as a more connected person. So that
I agree with that. And I think that's on us to do. So, I've hosted a couple of two, and I've done this for a while now, where I get groups of not random, I know them. I shouldn't say like to just pick people up off the street, but I'll get a group of people together who would not that are in different parts of my friend groups that you wouldn't normally meet. And I have friends who are artists, or friends that are musicians, or friends that are in private business, friends that are at my company, and I have all kinds of, interesting women in particular that makes my heart full. And it makes me so happy. And there's constant chatter about what are you doing? What are you doing? And how are you having fun? And what are you doing for fun? And you've been at this. And so I always ask a kind of an odd question. And I do this with my team as well. And they're called like icebreakers, but they're not really. It's really an intentional sharing. And I think that is what I've learned over the last few years that gets people becoming more personal. And if I know you, then I may be more inclined to either be more forgiving or more helpful, or whatever it is. I can't assume bad things or bad intentions if I know you a little bit better.
Oh, so, absolutely. Yes. And so you're absolutely right. So Dr. Murthy is calling on communities to create more connection, and I'm calling on individuals. And the reason why I knew you were so good at this is because I was so honored to receive a couple of invitations from you to come to these dinners with people I didn't know. And you're absolutely right. For the listeners, one of the things that Deanna does, besides curate a group of really cool people together who typically don't know each other, then she does throw in a question that every single person has to answer. I call those connection questions, and I advocate to all the leaders I work with to begin every meeting with a connection question, right? What I loved about this dinner is she threw out this connection question at the last dinner we had. It was, what era would you like to go back in and why? And I chose, I think, the 70s, because I remember watching my mom and dad throw these like disco Saturday Night Live parties, and I would be in my long nightgown. I think I was around 8 years old, on the gold shag carpeting on the staircase, looking in at them doing the hustle and Saturday Night Live Fever. Saturday Night Live? No, Saturday Night Fever.
Uh-huh.
In any case, so all of us had to go around, and then you really get to know more about a person. And then by the end of this particular dinner, which was recent, then all of a sudden we're like, when can we do this again? Where can we go next? You just feel more comfortable with the person when you go deeper.
And I don't plan out the question. I'm sort of random at that. But I think we were talking about, I forget what brought it up. And what I took away, though, Michelle, from that conversation was so insightful, because one of our friends said, okay, the romantic me would like to have been in the 20s and 30s, and remember, and it was our friend Sharonda. And then she says, but as a Black female and as a Black woman in that period, this is what the reality would have been. And it was one of those, and then it was like our friend who wanted to be a queen, right? And she was in the 1800s. And then she says, we reminded her it would have been really smelly. And so it was such a lovely conversation, because it was the political reality and the physical reality but it was also this opportunity to dream just a little bit, and sort of take that, let your mind sort of go somewhere else just for a minute, and share that with your friends. And then the other fabulous answer that evening was, does it have to be past, or could it be future? In the future, which just, I would have never thought of that. And what that speaks volumes to how she thinks, right? And how her perspective is not just back, but forward. So those are the kinds of fun things that I enjoy. And I thought about your questions a little bit, well, a lot actually before this. And one of your questions is, what is the big seismic shift you've seen in my career? And I kind of, it was like that night. I think I have like maybe not seismic shifts, but lots of mini quakes. And throughout my journey, and little things that have just shifted and then shifts again, and it prepares you for the next shift. And then something big happens and you're sort of ready.
Yeah,
so,
like when the transformer during Hurricane Ida fell into the Mississippi River. I will never forget that moment of seeing that headline and knowing, oh my gosh, poor Deanna.
Well, we were in the dark for about 6 days. Now, the city was, and first lights were back on in 48 hours. But that was I moved into the role in June of 21. So we're still in COVID. And the first 3 months of my job, I'm here 6 weeks in, back to what I do for a living is work with people who put their lives on the line every day, and their linemen. And in 4 weeks in, I had a fatality. We had a fatality. And there are people who have been in my role for years or in their industry for years and never have had that happen. And I was asked if I could call the parent of this young man. He was in his mid-20s. He had a 3-year-old. His wife was pregnant, or his girlfriend was pregnant. And I call, and his dad says, Miss Deanna, can I call you right back? And I said, and I get really teary-eyed with this. And I said, sure, of course. And I still don't know what I'm going to say to him. I just know I'm going to call. And he calls me back, and he says, I'm so honored that you called me. Thank you for calling me. And I said, I don't even know what to say. I just wanted to call and make sure you knew that I've been praying for you and thinking about you. And he says, well, I couldn't talk before because I was signing the orders to donate my son's organs.
Oh my.
And I just started bawling. And I said, well, I don't know what to tell you. I could not imagine what to say to this father. And I said that. I said, I'm so sorry. And I still get goosebumps. And he says, he goes, I'm the luckiest man for him to have been my son. And he ended up consoling me, and he was a man of faith, and he says he loved what he did, and it was just the most heartbreaking conversation, which talk about a shift in me, which I didn't know I was prepared to do. And not but 6-8 weeks later, we had Ida, yet another thing where I'm thinking, okay, I don't know how to do this either. And then about 2 weeks after that, my husband decides that he doesn't want to be married to me.
Oh,
so all within the first
gosh.
3-4 months. So I'm in a new city, new job, fatality of almost a Category 5 hurricane. So my seismic shift was a Category 5 hurricane.
In every part of your life.
In every part of my
and
life.
professionally.
And I just, there were some days I would just shut my door and I go, I'm going to cry for just a minute. I'd give myself that grace. And then I'd wipe my face. I'm like, okay, we'll keep going. So that was 4.5 years ago, almost 4.5 years ago. And I'm still loving what I do.
And you're very, very good at it. Who is your customer service person who was your executive assistant at the time?
Jessica Williams.
Jessica.
Yeah.
Jessica said the coolest thing, and it really is another example of great connection. We talked candidly about that time when you were going through the divorce and you were still having to show up as the president and CEO of Entergy amidst all these other crises. And sometimes some of the days were hard.
Yeah.
And she said there were times where she was relatively new in the relationship with you.
Right.
And so she would look through what we call old terms, the Rolodex, to try to find some of your friends who could really reach out to you to help when you were having tough days. And I thought, what a lovely connection gesture to say, I care about this person. I don't know if I'm the person to help, but I'm going to find somebody in her roster of close friends. And what a beautiful gift.
Well, and that shows that level of detail and compassion that she also shares with our customers, that she remembers, she understands. And I think that is all of us really, some of us have various superpowers. That's hers, is where she can find out how to connect somebody to someone else. And for me, it's like, I may not know the answer, but I know someone who does. And admitting, first of all, I don't know the answer, right? And then second of all, but through my ability to meet people and befriend them and have them help me and help them back, and she has taken that on to a whole new level. I mean, she's just, and that's why her career trajectory has changed significantly. And she's one of the hardest working people I know.
She's a dynamo.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about, there's so many people on this podcast who are wondering, okay, so we know that Deanna is really good at connection and relationships and people, and she does that personally. What sort of techniques do you bring into the workplace? Like, what have you built in? Or do you have some rituals that you do that bring people together? What makes it enjoyable to work at Entergy under your leadership?
I don't know if everybody would say it was enjoyable to work under me. I do think that they are happy that I'm very direct. I mean, it's good and bad, you get, but it's very seldom that someone wouldn't know what I'm thinking because I'll just say it. So, and my peers, we recently went through an exercise with the other operating company presidents and the functional heads of the company. And it's a big group. It's about 12 of us. And they did this shortcut to trust kind of thing. And one of the things that you have to describe about yourself is that sometimes I say things that I'm thinking, and so good. That comes with, it's great because people know, okay, she's not going to waste her time. And the bad news is they have to also accept it. And so I do think they like it, though. I think I've picked people to surround myself with that are just kind of no nonsense, but also like to have fun people. So I think that's one of the things. And as for rituals, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, I get peopled out. So I don't like people that much. So I have to be alone often at times. But I've taught my team, I've taught bosses I've had in the past, when you have to go into a reception, and I tell this to young people all the time, if you have to go to a reception that you don't know anybody, because that's hard, that's work, I've told my children this. I go, you have to meet 3 people you don't know, and then you can leave. And they're like, what? And you're in this reception. You could be at a conference. You could be at a party. I mean, and you're feeling obligated, and you're standing there, and you're like, okay. And what I always do is I take a deep breath, and I'm like, all right, here I go. And I'll go find somebody who looks a little bit open to talk to. And once I've done 3 people, met with 3, these are people I don't know, met 3 unique individuals. And then I have my permission to leave because I've done that. And then, but by the time you've met the 3rd person, you end up going, oh, I have something in common with you, or they bring someone else over and your circle expands. But that's my little rule of thumb that I use, and it's worked for me for many, many years.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. And anybody's up for a little challenge, and it gives you a little bit more of control. Okay, I'm going to do this. Maybe I'm a little bit uncomfortable, but I'll find 3 people I don't know, and then that gives me permission. I'm out. And then you grow from that, right? With discomfort comes growth and meeting new people. What advice do you have? Because there's a lot of people who are going to be listening to this episode like, I want to learn from Deanna Rodriguez, the president and CEO of Entergy. Based on your story and your journey, what advice do you have? I teach a lot of, I'm still a professor at Loyola, a lot of students who would look up to you like, how do I get to be that? What advice do you have for the young people of today?
I think it's all framed around empathy, and that probably sounds very gender-ish, or I don't know if that's correct either, but I always put myself in someone else's shoes. And so that works as if you're a customer, I provide a service. My company provides a service. I know when I call other companies and I don't like the service I get frustrated. So the first thing is to kind of know what it is. But I also go out to eat. And so people that I won't go back out to eat with is anyone that's rude to somebody in the service industry. I mean, It's just like, that is gross to me.
Yeah.
But that goes for anybody. Like if you're in a corporate setting, I apply the same thing. Anybody who's a gatekeeper. So anybody who is the person that answers the phone, if you're going to be rude to that person, but then nice to me, that's a very big signal to me that that's the kind of person, that's how you live your life. You think you're better than everyone else.
Yeah.
So I have this story. It's a joke really, but it's actually a funny story of, again, I'm a native Texan, and in Texas, when the lieutenant governor and the governor are out for the day, when they're gone from the state for the day, the Senate Pro Tem, the highest ranking senator, is allowed to be governor for the day. So Texas Capitol looks like the White House, but it's pink granite, and you have a big lawn in front, and they put up a big tent, and they of course have a Texas barbecue. So the guy who's governor for the day is walking through the line to get his barbecue chicken, and the lady hands him puts one piece of chicken on his plate, and he says, I want 2 pieces of chicken. And she says, you get 1 piece of chicken. And he goes, well, don't you know who I am? I'm the governor for the day. And she goes, well, that's nice. She goes, don't you know who I am? And he says, no. She says, I'm the lady in charge of the chicken. And so I tell that story to people because ever since I heard that story, like, I don't know, 25 years ago, I always remember that because they may not like it. You could be a man or a female, but I always call them the chicken ladies. Because somebody is always going to be, however important you think you are, there's somebody that is going to be will require something of you, and mostly it's respect. And I think that that's just a real quick, easy way to share with people that there's a lot of chicken ladies out there, and a lot of people in charge of the chicken that you may want to buy, sell, whatever it is. And you probably should be nice. So
absolutely. Gatekeepers
that's
everywhere. No matter how big you are, there's another gatekeeper keeping you from eating your 2 pieces.
Yeah, and they're not big. I mean, it
Right.
could be a parking attendant.
Yes.
You know?
Correct.
So that's the point.
Oh, that is a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. And as we close out this Seismic Shift episode, can you go ahead and share with our listeners what they can do maybe at work, or maybe the why? Let's answer the why. Why do you think connection is really important as a CEO? What are you seeing when you lean in with connection? What results are you seeing?
I'm seeing dramatic results. And I do think it starts, even young in your career, if you're just able to build those relationships. I keep a file, please don't send me these, but I do. I keep a file of people who are looking for jobs, and I keep a file of people who are wanting people. And that is one of the ways that's one simple way of who am I going to help, or who has helped me. And you never know, because unless you have that connection, unless you have made that relationship work, you might not know. But there was a lobbyist in Louisiana who, again, I lobbied in Texas for a while. He lobbied for our company in Louisiana, who was just this great guy. And I called him one time and I said, hey, I need help with, I said, hey, how's it going? I need help with, and I just moved right into what I need help with. And he says, Deanna. And I go, yeah. And he goes, how's your mama? I go, what? And he goes, we probably should start with, how's your mama? And I go, okay, she's fine. He goes, well, my mama's fine too. And I thought, what a great lesson, which was I jumped into, here's what I need, blah, 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 blah. And he was, why don't we talk for a second?
Yep. And that is the epitome of connection. Yes, that's the epitome of connection. How's your mama?
Exactly.
How's your mama?
Isn't that great? That's very Southern and very, very Louisiana.
That's the close of our episode. How's your mama? We're going to name this episode, How's Your Mama? Which is really apt. I love it. I can't thank you enough, Deanna. She goes by 2 names. People in Texas call her Deanna. People in Louisiana call her Deanna. She is the incredible president and CEO of Entergy New Orleans, and we're so grateful for your leadership, Deanna. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, this is fun, and I survived. So thank you, everybody.
You didn't just survive, you were fabulous. And thank you all who tuned in to the Seismic Shift podcast. We're so grateful for you and grateful for Loyola's sponsorship. Take care. Bye, y'all. Thank you for joining us on the Seismic Shift. And before you go, can I ask one favor of you? Do you mind sharing today's episode with a leader you know? The power of this conversation is found in your using it and sharing it to create real connection in your life. Lastly, I'd like to thank Loyola University New Orleans for helping bring this content to life.